Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. I'm here as always, my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, the transfer rumour mill, it stops for nobody. It stops for nobody. We're back again with an early morning Villa Filler special for you guys. But we've got a really exciting transfer rumour to talk about today, mate. Sorry. Oh my God, I'm so ill. I can't even talk. Moussa Dembele from Olympic Lyon. Now, this is really exciting because this is a player. Um, if we're gonna sort of transport you back 6 or 7 years as a 16, 17-year-old kid, was lighting up the championship with Ross McCormack at Fulham. They were quite a formidable duo. And it seems like such a long time ago now since them days. And I think when we dropped down to the championship, he then sort of got his move. I think it was maybe in the January to Celtic, won a few titles there, played under Brendan Rodgers, and really looked to develop his game at a young age. And he's made the move back to his native country of France. There's been a loan to Atletico Madrid in there as well. And this one really excites me because, I mean, like, if we're being completely honest, mate, he's a French Danny Ings, like in terms of style of play and output as well. For Lyon, he's scored 69 goals and assisted 19 in 159 appearances, which is a quite a remarkable return, really. But I think he's kind of struggled for consistency, hasn't he? And I think if you look at the numbers, I think it was the 2021 season, maybe it was 21-22, where he put up 21 goals in a season in Ligue 1, which is absolutely fantastic. Got himself in the team of the year. I think it was 23 goals in all comps that season. And he hasn't really reached those heights since then. But at 26 years old, he's somebody who has played in European competitions, both Europa League and Champions League, has played in a few of Europe's top 5 leagues, would provide a focal point, I think, for Aston Villa's attack is probably the best way of looking at Moussa Dembele at the moment. For €3 million, as someone who 2 years ago had a market value, according to Transfermarkt, of €50 million, it seems like a no-brainer.
Yep, I would agree. He's he's a player that we've been linked to for ages, it feels like, don't you think?
Yeah,
Like, this has been rumbling on for some time, and there's always a link in some transfer window to Moussa Dembele. And he's just a really good all-round striker. Like, he's a really complete number 9 that doesn't really have a weakness to his game. And you sort of watch him and think, if you had like a couple of standout like traits, he'd be one of the best forwards in the league, like if not on the continent. He's just really good at everything. And like, if you gave him like lightning pace or amazing aerial ability, do you know what I mean? Then you'd have like an elite player on your hands. He's someone that's just really good across the board and can play in a variety of ways. It's why he scored goals in like so many different leagues. He's obviously he had a little rogue loan to Atletico Madrid a couple of years ago. Didn't play too much there, but as you say, he's played in the Championship, he's played in Scotland, but it's really in France where he's made his name as a really top player. And it's hard to believe that he's only 26, because as you say, mate, he's been playing for Fulham. Like, he's broke through in 2013, so that's about, let's say, 10 years ago, when he was so young. And it feels like this guy's been forever. And when Atletico loaned him in 2021, just to give a sense of how much value there is in this deal, they had an option to purchase him for 33.5 million euros, so about 30 million pounds. And so we're getting him potentially at a tenth of that fee. And obviously that is because, as you say, his contract is running out at the end of the season. It's looked like for a few seasons now that he wouldn't be renewing that. Looks like he's got a big move in him. I can see why he'd like to come back to England, because he did have one season in the Premier League. His first season with Fulham was in the Premier League. He only, as I said, he was like 16, 17, so he only made a couple of appearances. But I can see why the appeal is there to come back to England and do it at the biggest stage, having done it in the Championship.
yeah,
And
and I
so,
think, sorry,
yeah,
sorry to zoom back then.
it's a very interesting deal, mate, and I see why he would be interested in it.
Yeah, I think as well, like if you look at it, it was 21-22 when he scored 21 goals in League and 4 assists. It was 22 and 5 in all comps that season as well. Like, it's one of my biggest bugbears, right? And I hear it everywhere and you see it online, mate. Villa need a 20 goal a season striker. They're unicorns. They don't
Yeah,
exist. Like Erling Haaland is a 20 goal a season striker. Karim Benzema is a 20 goal a season striker. Robert Lewandowski is a 20 goal a season striker. That's it. The list stops there. You can't go out and buy a 20 goal a season striker. It's almost like it's like this idealized, thing. If Villa had a 20 goal a season striker, they'd be in the Europa League. If Villa had a 20 goal a season striker, they would be nowhere near the relegation places. It's like it's if buts and maybes. They don't exist. And I'm not here to say that Moussa Dembele is that, because he's not. I mean, 21 goals in Ligue 1 is fantastic, but that probably translates to about 12 or 13, which I don't think you can really turn your nose up at, because I think if you can hit around 15 goals in the Premier League, you are more than a good enough striker in the division. And I think that would translate quite well to the Premier League, actually. And I think his, as you say, the sort of footballing education he's had and playing in the different leagues and having to adapt to different styles, I think it's allowed him to hone his craft and to be that, as I say, focal point to an attack, which I think Villa probably need right now. He offers a different skill set to Ollie Watkins. Looking at the numbers on FBref, Danny Ings is one of the players that is listed as a similar player in terms of numbers, which I find interesting because, again, we love Danny Ings, but I think if we're being like completely and 100% honest, and I'm taking my Danny Ings glasses off, he's not as mobile as we probably thought he was. And that's definitely, like, he still gets around the pitch, and it's a myth that anyone says Danny Ings doesn't work hard, because he does, but he's had a few niggling injuries over his career, to say that. I'm underselling that completely, which has definitely hampered how he sort of gets around the pitch. And is Moussa going to be the guy who is, who initiates the press and is going to be on the full, pressing onto fullbacks and pressing onto goalkeepers out of possession and just running around like a madman? He's not. But I think that's why, I mean, when you text me this morning, mate, you're saying Danjuma's off to Everton. Emery said in his presser, look, he's a good player, but we have plenty of players who play like that at the club. That sort of Danjuma Bailey role that exists at the moment, that's the guy who should really be initiating the press in this Unai Emery system. So I think it can work out fine. I think, as I say, it gives the attack a focal point, and I think it gives Villa much more of an identity than what we currently have right now. And obviously, it's still early days under Unai, and we're not stupid. We can see what he's trying to do. But I think a sort of a forward line of, I know obviously we spoke about Deulofeu, but it's kind of come out last night now that he's happy at Udinese and it's a family, and he's released this statement. It means nothing because he could still sign for Villa come deadline day. You never know. But a sort of front two pairing of Dembele and Leon, or Dembele and even Ollie, and then Villa are cooking on gas, really, mate, aren't they?
Yeah, totally, mate. Totally. Well, I think obviously it's easy to say now, but I mean, like with Deulofeu, he's like another one of those players that's like not really a nine, but can play there. I mean, him and Danjuma are obviously very different players that play in different positions, different profiles, but both of them can occupy the nine spaces, but they're not really. And so I think Moussa Dembele is as good as you get. I really do. I think when you look back at his the seasons that he's had, obviously, take a look at last season, like 21-22, he scored 21 goals in Ligue 1, got 4 assists to 25 goal contributions in 30 games, which is outstanding. He did that having picked up an injury which kept him out of 5 league games in the season. He also missed the Europa League as well, which is why he only got a goal and assist in that one. With that same injury, kept him out pretty much for the whole group stage, really. The season before, where he had that weird season where he only got a goal, he had COVID. And you can see, like, looking at transfer marks, how he had COVID, missed 3 games, but for so long, it's 16 minutes, 3 games on the bench, 26 minutes, 29 minutes, 14 minutes, 4 games on the bench, 10 minutes, another game on the bench. And you can see that clearly, like, his recovery back from that, like having COVID, must have really affected him, because there's no way why, like, he's one of the best strikers, like, why you put him on the bench for 10 games, a lot of them in the Europa League, makes no sense. So you imagine he's struggling to come back from COVID that season. And so there's been a few niggling injuries here and there, nothing too serious, but something that we can work around. But I mean, on your 20 goal a season point, mate, you make a really good one. You look at someone like Gianluca Scamacca, who I think is the bracket that Villa are sort of shopping in right now. Obviously, he sort of broke out in Italy last season, and everybody wanted him. He was linked to a number of clubs, but he only scored 16 goals in the league.
Yeah.
That's it.
And
16
he
goals in the
struggled to
league.
adapt in the Premier League as well.
Yeah, absolutely. 16 goals in the league, and West Ham paid 30.5 million as a base fee, with another 5 million in add-ons and a 10% sell-on clause to Sassuolo. So all in all, that's a 40 like you're getting up to a 40 million pound deal there for a guy that scored 16 goals. I mean, you look at Wolves, there's obviously sort of conflicting reports to Mateus Cunha, but the optional fee at the end of the loan is apparently around the same. And as I discussed when I spoke about him when he was linked to Villa, this is a guy that scored since 2020 has scored 15 goals in all competitions
Yeah.
in 3 years. And like again, that's 30 upwards of 30 million as a fee. So it's like when you've got a guy that you can see puts up numbers. I mean, 25 goal contributions in 30 games is there to see, and you can get him for 3 million. He's like, mate, look at that. As I say, I like Wout Weghorst, but the fact that Man United have to go to Wout Weghorst, the fact that they went to like Odion Ighalo a couple of seasons ago, tells you how hard it is to shop in that number 9 bracket. There aren't many of them right now, and it's like you can see so many of them take a little bit of time to adapt as well. So, you know, I mean, to use West Ham, they obviously had Seb Allaire, he came off of the back of a brilliant season. I think obviously with Dembele, you have the benefit of, okay, he's not played too much in the Premier League, but he's played in the Championship. He's played up in Scotland. You know, he's played on the European scene for a long time. So he's a player that has played against English opposition, will continue to. If he stays at Lyon, he'll play, like, continue to get European football there. So he's not a stranger to the league. So hopefully that adaptation period would be less. But yeah, mate, I think, as you say, you make a very good point in that nines are really hard to come by, especially prolific ones right now. And even the ones that aren't prolific, you're still paying loads of money for. So honestly, I think Dembele is as good as we could get.
Absolutely. And I think, like, you know, looking at the circumstances as well, obviously Alex Lacazette came in at Lyon in the summer on a free transfer. Um, they're going to want to recoup some money, and like 3 million is better than no million. Like, if we're being completely honest, I actually watched him play in September, mate. When I was in France for the weekend, I managed to somehow convince Charlotte to go to watch Monaco versus Lyon. And he came off the bench and had about 20 minutes. And he looked decent. They were chasing the game. They were losing 2-1. But you know, he as I say, he provided that focal point that Lyon really needed in that time. They didn't obviously manage to get the win. Monaco looked quite good, and Bad Chile scored in that game as well. Who's obviously recently joined Chelsea. I feel like every time I've been to this is my second Monaco game. I went when I was on holiday a few years back as well, and it was like Bernardo Silva, Fabinho,
Wow.
Benjamin Mendy. I mean, the less about him, the better. Timo Bakayoko, all these players. It was just before it was like the season of Mbappe's like breakthrough season, but he hadn't broke through yet, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
they had like no strikers. They were playing Bernardo up front. Mbappe was like a nobody at this point. And we was watching the game. I was with Alex, and we was like, okay, all of these players are getting Prem moves. And ironically, like half of them joined City, who Alex supports. Um, so, I mean, you know, there is plenty of talent. There's a wealth of talent in the French league. And Moussa Dembele is one of them players. And, you know, as I say, I've seen him with my own eyes. So I can put the Villa full of stamp of approval on this one. I think this will work out. I'm putting my neck on the line, and I hope we get it done for 3 million, mate.
Yep, for sure, mate. Yeah, I am all for this deal. The only annoying thing is if it happens, we should have done it 2 years ago. Do you know what I mean? Like when we were linked to him first time around, if you buy him 2 years down the line, when we've been struggling for strikers, we should have done it then. But you know, swings and roundabouts on him.
Beggars can't be choosers, mate. And as you say, it's such a hard position to recruit for. Um, I mean, you know, there's a few people that kind of, I don't know if they were tongue in cheek in the comments saying, let's recall Keenan and Wesley. As much as this is the Keenan Filler podcast and the Wesley Filler podcast, there's just levels, unfortunately, and Keenan can't buy a minute at Watford, which is a bit sad. So, you know, this is that presence that we'll need. And yeah, it looks like, I mean, Emery said, you know, Duran is not ready, but I imagine Duran will. I mean, like, you know, when we're talking about replacing Ings, I think something that maybe got misconstrued when I did the last video, I meant in terms of the the role which Danny Ings occupied in the squad, where it was like 20 minutes off the bench at the end of a game. Like that's what I mean in terms of replacing Danny Ings, because obviously in my ideal Aston Villa team, Danny Ings starts every game, but that isn't the reality of how of Danny Ings, performances at Aston Villa. So I think, we'll get sort of 20, 15 minutes here and there of Duran. Obviously, we still don't know what's happening with him, whether he goes back to Colombia, stays. So, again, even more of an impetus to get this one done. Sign him, Moussa Dembele, give him the number 9. We're cooking on gas, mate. That's what I want to see. And hopefully this helps us as well. We've got rid of Gilbert. Sanson will be on his way out. So we're getting rid of the French players that don't like being at Aston Villa. Hopefully Dean, hopefully these guys can say, listen, Matteo Guendouzi, come on over in the summer, and hopefully that can work out as well. But yeah, guys, if you enjoyed this podcast, let us know. Hit a like, comment your thoughts below on this transfer. We'd love to know your thoughts. Subscribe for more on Instagram and TikTok as well, at Heart of the Holte on TikTok, at Villa Pod on Instagram. Get at it, follow us, like, engage, all that kind of stuff. Love Villa.